Well, the day is finally here. Horizon Forbidden West is now out. I just picked the game up, came back, popped the disc in, waited like 30 minutes for it to install, and then also pull any updates it needed. It's like 90 gigabytes too that I had to read off of the disc and then install and then download. But it's finally time to play the game. I've been looking forward to this for a while. It's been almost 5 years now since the original Horizon Zero Dawn released on the PlayStation 4. And since then, we've been looking forward to this title because with what Guerrilla was able to do on the PS4, it was like, how are they going to blow our mind with the visuals and the world building with Forbidden West? And that's what we're going to find out today. So if you guys enjoyed the video, make ssure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe down below. So I do know that there is a graphics mode and like a performance mode. I think I'm gonna leave it on graphics mode mostly because this video is gonna be 30 FPS on YouTube anyway, so you might as well get like the full graphical experience on the PlayStation 5. But just looking through the settings, there's actually a lot in here when it comes to the controls, the audio. Wow, yeah, wait, hold on, there's a lot here in the controls. The visuals, I mean, everything. The accessibility is, wow, it's quite in depth. I have favorite resolution on, otherwise it's favorite performance, but I think I'm just going to leave it on, like I said, favorite resolution, so you get the whole next-gen experience here. Load times are pretty quick. It went from new game, difficulty, and all of that right into the game pretty quick for this opening cutscene. I actually replayed Horizon Zero Dawn like a month ago in anticipation for this, and then I played like 3 or 4 other games like Sifu and Dying Light 2, and now I'm back to like, oh wow, it really feels like it's been a while now since I played Horizon Zero Dawn. But I feel like I'm caught up in everything, and I'm just ready to jump in and see what Guerrilla was able to do. So one part that I was very curious about with Forbidden West had to do with the DualSense controller, which continues to impress me as we get PS5 specific games for the most part. I know this is also on the PS4, but I feel like Sony and Guerrilla really wanted to show what the PS5 was capable of here. And after playing games like Returnal or even Deathloop, you start to realize that the DualSense controller can be used in a bunch of different ways. And I'm already seeing it being used here with kind of the galloping that's going on. The DualSense has like the light or a more intense rumble to kind of mimic that. The character models are way more detailed here, and something I'm already noticing is with the first Horizon Zero Dawn, there were, I would say, issues when it came to the character models and kind of their expressions, depending on what they're saying and some of the emotion they're attempting to display. This just looks much more natural, like initially as I'm looking at this. This is like the opening cutscene here that I'm going through, but like you can tell immediately the difference between Horizon Zero Dawn characters and Forbidden West. Now that cutscene's over and we're into the gameplay, and it's pretty impressive. I think the part that's really impressed me the most after seeing like the state of play and the different things they've shown off is kind of how dense the overall environment was when they were showing it off. I just basically had to go around and collect some of the plants like you would be doing in the first one. You're running around just kind of harvesting different healing materials basically, or just different things you can use to like craft different arrows and ammunition, all of that. But like just kind of a quick look here, I am pretty interested to see just what they were able to do with all the different environments and kind of the world. This is a small section that I'm looking at here, and it is very, very impressive. So if you didn't play the first one, you would go around, collect different materials like the trees and all of this, and you would create arrows, other ammunition. And they're having me do that now, and I'm looking up at this ladder. They have like actually a lock there. So I crafted some arrows. We'll go ahead and fire one here, and it does have that the adaptive triggers here functioning, which didn't have for the first one. Obviously that was on the PlayStation 4, and they added like a 60 FPS patch for the PS5 and all of this. It basically just uncapped the frame rate from the 30, which is sort of funny because that's what I'm playing at now for this mode. But they're definitely taking advantage of this DualSense controller so far. I'm hearing things through the speaker. You're getting like the rumble and the different effects, and also having kind of that tension that occurs when you pull back on the bow, which, if you remember, this was basically the original game that they sort of described it with when they were talking about this DualSense controller, basically talking about pulling back an arrow on the bow, and when you fire it, they even have the left trigger kind of kick up a little bit against you. So they have us run into our first machine here, And I have to say, just off this initial machine here, it just seems like the movement and kind of the detail around that is a step up from what we had, where they were definitely machines, obviously, but they kind of moved like machines. This one in particular is moving much more like you'd expect just a standard creature to move around. Like, it's very flexible and everything, so it's kind of an interesting look to it. It has a weak spot that they've pointed out here, so I'll sort of fire away at it and see if we can just destroy this one immediately. Yep, cool. They do still have the grass, of course, that it looks like they're setting up for you to stealth your way through. Shooting's fine. That's something I didn't really have an issue with in the first one. The thing that I think was the weakest part around the combat was the melee itself, or like the hand-to-hand combat. I get specifically against humans, really, but it looked like they had worked on that in the state of play and the gameplay that they showed. I mean, I can just kind of take some swings with R1, and I have like a bit of a combo going on here. So when we run into the next machine, provided it's not some massive thing, maybe I'll actually try taking some swings at it. I just turned on gyro aiming after that, and I think I would mostly just use this for like fine-tuning when it comes to the firing. The issue I have is it doesn't feel as good in 30 FPS mode. I think that's something that would do much better in a higher frame rate, like 60, for example. But I think I'm just going to use it for after I'm already aimed down like the sights, and I just want to move just a little bit to the left or right. It is quite noticeable just how, like I said, how dense the environment is here. I mean, you have plants all over the place, kind of creeping up the walls here. There's not a lot of bare floor when I'm sort of walking through here. It's going to be more interesting, I feel like, when I actually get out into like the larger open areas to see if they're still able to do that. But just here, it looks very alive kind of in this small section. They had me craft this thing called a pull caster, which I used to like rip apart a wall, but it looks like it's basically going to be my grappling hook too. So there we go. We'll see how that plays into it, especially when we get into some of the climbing, which is something I was really curious about with this game, because the first one, the climbing mechanics were kind of weak as well, especially because that was like around the time where we had Assassin's Creed really putting together some pretty impressive climbing mechanics, and we also, of course, had The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild come out, where they were like, you can climb everything unless it's raining. So that's something I'm hoping that they manage to improve on here, but the fact that they give you a grappling hook pretty much right away is at least making me, I guess, optimistic about the climbing. I mean, like, at least this looks, I'd say, more natural, because it would just get outright frustrating at times when you're trying to climb the side of a mountain in Horizon Zero Dawn, and it appears like you can, but it doesn't have that right miscolored rock or something to grab onto. I mean, we're really getting to a point with the visuals now from like the gameplay going into these cutscenes to where it's just so seamless looking. It is impressive stuff, but it's Guerrilla, and I usually expect them to have like top tier visuals for the most part in their games. Yeah, I think the story for Horizon is actually pretty interesting. It's certainly better than what people will give it credit for, that you'll see talked about online. And I mostly like kind of the premise and the setting, where obviously the characters and people you come across are all using like very primitive tools, but then you'll see elements of the story and they're talking about like futuristic technology and stuff, and it all just kind of mashes together. The problem with Horizon Zero Dawn is they wanted you to read and listen to so much stuff just outside of the main path of the story that you were set on to really get like the lore and the backstory for it. So if they were able to, I think, intertwine that a bit more with the main path that you were on, then I think you'd hear much more talk about the story for Horizon Online. They also did a very quick jump ahead with the story in the beginning as the opening cutscene, just to try to catch you up on a basic idea of the story. So I guess anyone out there, if you're curious, could you just jump into this one? So far from like the early part of this kind of tutorial segment that they have set up in like the first 45 minutes or so, and just them trying to recap the story. Yeah, technically you could. I mean, it's probably better you play Zero Dawn, but I don't think you'd necessarily miss out on everything if you just skipped Zero Dawn and went to this. Yeah, they still do the thing where it's like, here's this random string of just yellow wood and rocks to kind of show you the path to take upwards. It's less obvious than the first one, Zero Dawn, and you do seem to climb around a bit faster overall. Like, it doesn't seem as like janky necessarily, just sort of hopping around like this, whereas sometimes you would just jump off into the middle of nowhere for no reason in Zero Dawn, or it just wouldn't quite connect sort of the climbing path that you could see was obviously there, and it would just take a few times to get it. Yeah, they've definitely set this up, so if you haven't played Zero Dawn, you can at least get an idea as to what's going on. There's a lot of smaller details, obviously, they'd be missing, but yeah, with the first hour really just trying to teach you how to play the game, a lot of similar concepts that we had in Zero Dawn, and then them also kind of going through the story with Aloy, sort of explaining as we've gone through, like, what exactly is happening in a general sense. I think you'd be okay if you really want to just jump in and try out this big PS5 game that dropped. Ooh, see, this is something I was really excited for, the way that they were showing it off in previews, where they're going to have these really large creatures. It looks like there's, like, just a big snake kind of slithering around down there. So I was envisioning some pretty large bosses that we'd have to go up against that we didn't necessarily see in Zero Dawn, and that looks like what we're kind of going towards here to finish up basically the tutorial section. So there's 3 of those like big snakes down there, and we're gonna try to drop this shuttle on them, I guess. But I wonder if they end up just being like enemies you come across in the world at this point. It does feel a lot more free, like the climbing with the grappling hook and moving around. It's faster. It does, at least from what I'm seeing now, appear like they've strung it together much better. And you're even like launching yourself up with the grappling hook and doing a lot more variety with kind of the parkour and the climbing aspect. So I'm pretty hopeful for the traversal in this game. Even though it's a small section, we haven't gotten to like the open world necessarily yet. I don't feel like it's getting in the way much. And it's just every like part of this so far just looks so alive and so dense. I mean, I've said that a few times now, but it really is like noticeable as you go through just how much work they put in. Even like these parts that you're just going to be running right past. There's just a lot of attention to detail that's gone into environments that you're running through. You know, I'm getting close to leveling up, and I thought we'd take a quick look at the skill trees, because it's like there's definitely a bit more to unlock here than in Zero Dawn, as you'd expect. We have Warrior, Trapper, Hunter, Survivor, Infiltrator, then Machine Master. Now, these are sort of a play off of what we had in Zero Dawn, but like this looks way different than we had. Like a skill tree was all basically on one page, and you would just have different paths that you go down. And now I'm legitimately gonna have to look through this and I guess just figure out which path I want to go the first time. Because the fact that there's 31, 20, 29, 29, 27, 26 points to unlock. And it looks like even on top of that, there are levels for each one. This one's level 1, 10% damage. I guess there's gonna be a level after that as well. And it looks like it's also attached to outfits. You know, like these, for example, these surges, that has a couple of bars to fill up. It looks like there's going to be quite a bit to go through and unlock and progress as you play. So I'm pretty excited to look through these skill trees and I guess pick out a path. So I'm going to have to figure out which way I'm going to go with this. Here's our last connector. Should get a nice set piece here. Drop the shuttle on all those snakes. So, of course, one snake kind of survived because video games. But I guess in this sense, they can sort of show you what like one of these large creatures would be like otherwise without them just throwing you like right at it. But that's where all the acid was coming from that we saw like in the caves and stuff, or from these snakes that just attacked everyone. So wanted me to scan it, figure out where its weak points are, and then sort of take it out. Whoa, all right, so it's pretty cool. You got like the destruction of like the different rocks. It's like lunging at you. And I guess I'm just going to go around, take out its weak spots, avoid any of this acid that it's shooting. It says it's weak against ice, so we'll hit him with these frost bombs to see if that does anything for me. See, I throw enough of them at him, it'll stun it. A nice critical strike in there. Probably a couple other shots too. The melee attacks are brutal in this. When you really start connecting with some of those shots on like the enemies, you'll like knock them backwards. You'll do all kinds of stuff to them. So looks like I guess just hit them with some frost bombs, and like half this thing's health is gone already. So we had like some large encounters with different creatures in Zero Dawn, but none of them like this one just feels like alive. Maybe it's just because of the way it's moving around, and they have it like jointed all over, like it has all these joints that it can bend with and everything. This, it just feels like, I know it's a machine obviously, but it feels like a living creature sort of they have here. It's very, very impressive stuff the way it looks. So now this thing's just free and it's angry. What an interesting boss to like start you with. I mean, really, it definitely sets the tone, I would say, for me anyway, so far looking at this, because now I'm thinking about what other big enemy bosses are they going to have that are going to top this like large snake. I like the way that they've animated it. It, like I said, it feels very alive. You feel way like overpowered just initially when you look at it. And obviously they have it set up so you can win and all that playing it correctly, but it does feel legitimately like, oh, this looks pretty intimidating to fight a large snake like this. So I'm liking how they've set this up so far, and I'm looking forward to getting well into this game. They were talking about it being like a game that's going to take you hundreds of hours to do everything in, and I think a lot of that's going to have to do with the world, of course, that you go through. But wow, if that's just like the initial Slitherfang that I'm fighting here, and there were even 3 of them before this, I think it's going to be a wild ride going through this game. I think that's where I'm going to end it for now. That's about the first 90 minutes or so of the game with my initial thoughts and impressions of it as I went through for the first time here. They basically spent quite a bit of time teaching you the game again for the most part, with some nice little wrinkles like the pull caster thrown in there. And now they've gone through an entire bit of story and everything in order to set up the Forbidden West and kind of the journey that you're about to be on. But I do like the improvements they've made so far for Horizon Zero Dawn when it comes to the climbing. The combat seems more fluid. Although I didn't really do any melee or hand-to-hand combat against other humans, at least against the different machines, it worked pretty well. And so far from basically the one boss that they set up for like the tutorial side of things in that first hour with that very large snake, I'm pretty interested to see what other large encounters they have set up. And I do like the attention to detail and the animation that some of these machines have, where they feel more alive, less robotic, which is obviously there's machines. But I'm excited to play more. Let me know if you picked up Horizon Forbidden West down below and what your thoughts are so far. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.